Welcome to Creepypasta Theater, a show where we explore the strange world of creepypasta and urban legends. Join us as we hear tales best left untold, travel roads best left unexplored, and see sights best left unseen. Today, we will be taking a look at 3 short ritual creepypasta. These tales tell of how you can communicate with spirits, visit places no mortal is meant to tread, or uncover knowledge no man should know. These stories are found on creepypasta.wikia.com and are protected by Creative Commons license. So go ahead, feel free to try them out at your own risk. Don't say I didn't warn you. The abandoned convenience store. Ever wonder how some people you meet seem to have no fear whatsoever? You know, those people who go skydiving every weekend, climb thousands of feet up mountains just to snowboard down the side that's probably pretty safe, as long as you avoid those trees. People who marathon watch the scariest movies you've ever seen, they don't even blink before falling asleep. Well, if you envy them, then there's a way to conquer your own fear. You'll just have to pay the consequences. Get on any passenger bus that travels a long distance. Greyhound is usually a good pick, anything that's on the road for longer than 24 hours. Get a window seat facing west, then stare at the sun, waiting until sunset. Just before the sun touches the horizon, close your eyes. Hard. Do not turn away. Don't look at anything else. Cover your ears if you have to. After a while, you'll notice that the bus has stopped moving. That's the signal that you can open your eyes. When you do, you'll see a gas station, illuminated only by a few flickering fluorescent lights. There will be no sun, no moon, no stars in the sky. The convenience store will have its windows boarded up, but the sign will say, "Open." If you feel you can't go through with it, get back on the bus, return to your seat, and fall asleep. You'll wake up at sunrise the next day, well on your way to wherever the bus was going. If you enter the store, the door will slam shut behind you. You will spend an unknown amount of time there, living out your worst nightmares made real. If you survive the ordeal without going mad, you will awake back on the bus as it reaches its destination. Nothing will ever scare you again. Some say that after going through this ordeal, everything else simply pales in comparison. Others say that all that room contains is all the fear you will ever feel in your entire life, and exposing yourself to it all at once keeps you from feeling any more. This, however, can only be done once. There are some exceptions to the ability as well. All I know is that if you try to repeat this feat, the sign on the door will say, "Closed." Abandoned farm. In the middle of England, there is a farm owned by a man called John Glass. If you are lucky enough to find this farm, John will happily take you to see his animals and will treat you with utter kindness. He will keep you there until nightfall, when he will insist that you must stay over and drive back in the morning. Not wanting to disrespect this old man, you will agree and settle down for the night in a cozy room. In the morning, you will wake up on a mattressless bed. The room will be dirty, smelly, and seem to be old. The rest of the farm will too, with a few rotting animal carcasses in the fields. There will be no sounds, except for the sound of faint squeaking. You will find that it is coming from a run-down barn, and if you dare to peek inside, you will see yourself bound and gagged. You will watch John Glass torture you in ways you couldn't even imagine. Then, you will wake up in your bed with no memories of the day before. You will search for an abandoned farm, and as soon as you see it, you will decide to move there and renovate it. You will forget about your old life. A year later, an unsuspecting traveler will come to your farm. You will happily take them to see your animals and treat them with utter kindness. Big Top. There's a quiet place where nobody goes that has been frozen in time since the early 20th century, surrounded by thick forests and littered with broken down vehicles, caravans, and posters. The clearing is devoid of all life. Yet at the center of the clearing is a Big Top style tent in the traditional red and white striped patterns of the circuses of old. Several flags blow in the often cold air. During the hours of daylight, the place is silent, save for the sounds of birds in the surrounding trees or the crunching of dirt beneath one's feet. Entering the Big Top, one can see rows of empty seats and a large open space where performers of old would have given the audience a spectacular show. Equipment once used by acrobats swing from the top of the tent, and the stand remains in the center, covered in dust, once the place where the great beasts, such as the elephants, would perform their tricks. Yet by the cover of night, things change as the abandoned Big Top comes to life. The silence of the clearing shattering as the sound of old carnival music fills the air and the spectral crowds come out of the forest. They flood into the tent as skeletal figures on stilts take tickets and strange malformed creatures juggle and ride unicycles. Disgustingly fat, putrid beings dressed in clown suits hand out balloons to excited children with no eyes and beckon to any living soul foolish enough to be in the area at the time. If one enters the Big Top, they are directed to sit down in the crowd, the whole place buzzing with activity as headless attendants hand out buckets of popcorn and candy floss to the crowds. The smell of death, urine, and animal musk dominates the entire area. Trying to get up results in being shoved back into one's seat. Resistance only causes several of those fat clown creatures to sit around you like spectral bouncers. The show, as they say, must always go on. Indeed, what a show it is, too. A ringmaster appears in a tattered red suit with a top hat and a long whip, his face covered in scars and eyes rolled back into his head as he speaks gibberish to the crowds, who cheer and clap. Acrobats swing across the Big Top with disturbing movements, not unlike ragdolls. At the same time, A parade of malnourished horses go in circles around the stage. On their backs ride what appear to be extremely thin women with revealing costumes and burlap sacks wrapped around their heads. After the ritual is complete, the crowds will cheer some more and the ringmaster bows. More gibberish flows from his mouth and he cracks his whip against the stand. It is then that the sound of heavy footsteps enter the big top as a pure white elephant enters and gives a mighty trumpet with its trunk. The beast would be strikingly beautiful had its thick skin not been covered in deep scars, some of which had not healed properly and thus gave way to noticeable infection. The great elephant makes its way to the stand and goes up onto its hind legs. The ringmaster cracks his whip again, and the crowds cheer. Then, the ringmaster bows, and the elephant returns from where it came. A final line of nonsense comes from the ringmaster's mouth, and the crowds get up and leave. Should you find yourself as part of this spectacle, you will be moved along. Should you be unwilling or unable to move, those fat clowns will be sure to help you on your way. Exiting the big top, you are greeted to a final show as those unicycle riding dwarves now take on the role of fighter eaters, and a strong man shows off his might, sporting so much muscle mass it is almost obscene. Finally, you are approached by one of the skeletal figures on stilts. Should you be brave enough not to flee, the figure hands you a ticket and gives you a smile before leaving. That is when you should also think of leaving, for by the time the sun rises again, the crowds will have returned to the forest, and the big top will once again be empty as the morning birds begin to play their tune. You have been listening to a production of the Eclectic Media Project. Please check us out on the web at www.eclecticmediaproject.com and on Podbean and iTunes. Find Scott and Chad on Twitter as well, at EMP_Scott and at ChadEMP. We are on Facebook at Eclectic Media Project. Visit our publishing arm at www.poigamestudio and follow them on Twitter at poigamestudio. Thank you, and we look forward to bringing you more thought-provoking and enjoyable content.